How the heck are you guys? I am Fastidious. Welcome to this guide on the new ancient exclusive legendary lord in Wancho realms, Rygar. Rygar. You know, typically I am higher on new heroes than other content creators and other players. I like to really try them in tons of places and try to find the good special things in their kit. I've seen a lot of talk about Rygar. I'm not saying anyone's saying this guy's god tier or something, but in general, people are way too high on this guy. Not even that they're that high, but even the minimal amounts they are high on him is way too high. So unfortunately, I am going to have to go against the grain on this one. I hope you watch the whole guide because I spent way too freaking long preparing this thing. So please do me a favor, my friends, try to watch the whole video. I'll add chapters so you can skip around at your leisure. And if you like what I'm doing here, if you're enjoying the content, please subscribe to the channel. It supports me. It allows me to keep doing this every single day, full time as my job, which I appreciate so much, guys. So if you like it, subscribe to it. A lot of people need to know the immense shortcomings in his kit. I think there is an explanation for why Rygar feels mid, and I want to give a shout out to a viewer, Bionics138. I don't think he's mid, but he does feel disappointing, and this viewer, Bionics, had a great reason why, and I think it probably is the case. We've been hearing rumors and rumblings and mumblings about Rygar and the ancient exclusive lord in some version of this for it feels like close to a year, certainly over half a year, certainly since the summer at the very least. And it's very likely they designed him a longer time ago, before Twyla was in the game, before Kagiri and his crazy awakenings were in the game, and certainly before Sun Wukong was in the game, right? Even maybe he was developed before Arrogance had a bond skill, because he's pretty good. If Sun Wukong, Kagiri, and Twyla didn't exist, this is good DPS. But now that we've had power creep for a year, he's falling short. He's still a higher end fighter in terms of a hero. But combine that with a very questionable lord skill that needs him on the field when you have such crazy other options, we have a problem. And by using him over Torodor, you're losing a tank and you're losing a crazy non-deployment ult contingent lord skill in what Torodor has. I hope you are starting to get the picture here. Before I talk about the negative, let's talk about the positive. He is a very good fighter hero. Is he great? I don't know. Or is he amazing? I'd say no. He's not Sun Wukong. He's not Twyla. He's not Arrogance with Awakenings. For a lot of content, he's not even Valeria, right? But he is a good fighter. Elddr is not a good fighter. So all the comparisons between him and Elddr are not fair in terms of them as a hero. And it's really frustrating because Rygar needs to be used as a hero since his lord skill is completely contingent upon him being deployed and him ulting. And that's a perfect transition to the other big problem. One thing I am not seeing said enough is actually the place where Elddr is better than him. Eldr's lord skill is better. So yeah, there's content where it's kind of huge from his lord skill, which of course we will talk about. The heals from the basic attacks are amazing. But again, that is tied to him being deployed and him having to be ulting. But obviously there's going to be content where he can allow your team to self-heal if you have a lot of nightmare units, so you don't need a healer. The main place I'm thinking is single target arena. However, this boost here, plus 25% damage to basic attacks. Remember, that's an additive boost on the total damage increase pile. This does not manifest as every basic attack is now 25% more damage. Realistically, it's between 10 and 18%, depending on the other damage increase boosts your heroes are getting, right? That only stacks on the initial damage calculation, not after the initial damage has other damage increases, and then this compounds on top of it. That is not how this works. So actually, if I show you Elddr, in many ways, this is a better lord skill. Yeah, it's not 100% uptime because the attack boost Elddr gives is dependent upon the allies in his faction having a shield, but that 20% attack, post-deployment attack boost, is going to lead to a much bigger damage increase than the 25% damage increase to basic attacks that Rygar provides only during his ult. And a key thing here, yes, Elddr does provide shields through his lord skill, just like Hearts or Isolde, though not with 100% uptime, but they are at least as frequent as Rygar when he's ulting. But the key thing is, other units, other allies in a comp with Elddr can be providing shields, so you can get very good uptime on this 20% boost. And that 20% attack boost is already better, and now it has better uptime. So even though I think it's inappropriate to say Rygar is the new Elddr, because Rygar the hero is a much, not talking about a lord, Rygar the hero is a much better hero than Elddr. Elddr has 1 tile range. He has bad multipliers. He's not that good. Rygar has 2 tile range. He is very good, even though not fantastic for a lot of things, at least not yet, not without awakenings. But the thing is, as a lord, Elddr's better. Elddr's better. He's not a good lord. And you're going to see that in this video. So there is so much to cover in this guide. It's going to go pretty fast. I don't want this thing to be too long. We have a lot of math to do and a lot of comparisons to do. So let me break it down for you. First thing I want to do is head to head. I'm not going to show these whole full battles. We'll do the first one all together. And then for the next ones, we'll just cut to the end because there's just too much to do. I want to compare all these different heroes in different runs with different Nightmare Lords. So you can see we've got the different lords we're going to use. We're going to do 5 total runs. And then we have the awakenings of the non-lord legendary heroes we are doing. So we'll do at A0 originally all of these non-lord heroes, testing with Rygar as a lord, Torodor as a lord, and Wrath as a lord. The key thing, you may notice there's a lot of names here. That's because if we're running Rygar as the lord, that means we can only bring 2 other melee units. Since we're testing in Guild Boss 1, if you're running a conventional comp with Dolores, you can only fit 3 melee DPS into her range. So if we're bringing Rygar, he needs to be deployed so he can ult and you can use his Lord skill. That means we can only bring 2 other melee DPS. If we're running Torodor or Wrath, we don't have to deploy them besides an initial deploy to get the Nightmare Lord bonus. In this case, we don't even have to do it because we're bringing Yuri. But they don't need to be on the field. They don't need to take up a melee spot, which means we can bring a 3rd Nightmare melee DPS. And this is a huge knock against Rygar. If you have a good, strong roster with a lot of high-end, melee options, Nightmare fighter options specifically, you're going to have to justify bringing him over like an Arrogance or maybe even an A3 Arrogance or something kind of spicy like that. So as you'll see, when we run Rygar, we're not going to run Arrogance. We won't have the space for him. When we run the other ones, he won't be on the field, so we will run Arrogance. And I want to see, do we do better with the A0 Arrogance or later on the A3 Arrogance? I'll talk about that in a second. Or do we do better with Rygar? So we're going to start out with all our non-lords at A0. And then we don't need to do Wrath again. This is just to set the lowest baseline. But you'll see it's like, the difference is not that crazy. Then we'll do with all these heroes at A3, testing Rygar as a lord and Torodor as a lord. I'm not going to show Rygar at A3 because I think that's kind of crazy. People are not going to use Soul Stones on him. He's not good enough for that. So very few people will have him there. So the real comparison is like people, especially getting him now that have been playing for a while, you're going to have to justify placing Rygar and losing out on that 3rd melee spot. In this example, Arrogance, who very likely for you might be A1 or A2 or A3 or even A5. So can he be good enough to help with that? Let's find out, right? Let's find out. So there's going to be those 5 comparisons. Like I said, we'll do the first one all together to set a baseline, and I'm going to show it. I've got like perfectly even gear and even artifacts on everyone. I spent way too long obsessively getting everything even. We'll do this one together, and then we'll just quickly jump and fill out this table. I'll run this, I'll run this, I'll run this, I'll run this. We'll get a ton of data. It will become really clear really the DPS benefit, and you can kind of extrapolate from this how good he'd be versus Torodor and other content. Then I'm going to show you him in Guild Boss 2, the frequencies to land his stuns and his defense reductions. I've done a ton of math. You're going to see him in this build over here with 501 attack speed with the plus 35% additional attack speed from the Nightmare buff. It's up to 676. And then I'm actually going to build almost 700 attack speed on him to see if we get him lightning quick, how well he does, which comes out to 901 attack speed with the boost. Can he do it? Spoiler alert, there's too much RNG. And that's a good transition into what I want to briefly talk about now and the last chunk of this video. And it's basically just going to take you through like ratings and content by content, all the places that, quite frankly, I'm not going to bury the lead. Torodor is much better than him at. Because this is the key thing. You always have to be sacrificing another fighter that you could bring by bringing Rygar, right? Because he has to be on the field. So that's the first issue. The second issue is Torodor is your tank for so much content. So any content, assuming you had everybody, right? Obviously, we're going to talk about the situation if you don't have Torodor. That's like the key time you are going to use Rygar. But so often, if you bring Rygar, that means you need to find another tank. With Torodor, it's 2 birds with 1 stone. Maybe even more than 2 birds because he's also a great hero. But at the very least, you're getting a tank and you're getting a lord. With Rygar, he's just another freaking nightmare fighter. And as you're going to see, is he on the level of the other ones? Spoiler alert, no, he's not. So let's get into it. Guild Boss 1, then Guild Boss 2 for stun checks and defense break checks. Buckle up. I really hope you watch the whole thing because this is This video is going to be something. And please, if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, do that now. Let's get into it. Rygar time. All right, in just 1 or 2 minutes, and I'm serious, that quickly, let me take you through Rygar's kit. It's all revolving around his talent. He has a hammer in one hand, an axe in the other. The hammer comes with a 20% chance to inflict stun at base when he gets to hit with that. The axe comes with a 20% chance to place a defense reduction. It's a 20% defense reduction, so comparable to Ares or Torodor, but obviously there's a big RNG component. It is lesser than Estrid or Hotsit, who have a 30% defense reduction. And if you're talking 100% uptime, the best in the game is going to be Yuri over here with the 25%. So he pales in comparison in that respect, but he is a source for it. When he does his basics, 40% of the time, and we're going to go deep on this later, don't worry, 40% of the time with his 2-tile basic attack range, he is going to use his hammer. That means you get a 20% chance of the stun. So 40% of your hits, 1/5 of those will end up being a stun. The other 40% of the time, he's going to just use his axe, and 1/5 of those, 20% of those, will do a defense break. The remaining total 20% of the time, he's using both at the same time, and again, you have the opportunity to land either or both. So pretty solid. He's got this ult over here. It turns every basic attack into that double hitter, the Warlord's Might, and it doubles the chances to land the stuns and the defense reductions. It's pretty good. Every 3 attacks, he also triggers an extra instance of damage with a little boosted damage, 300%, as well as 70% damage splash to 5 nearby enemies, so it can hit up to 6 targets. Pretty low splash there, though, at 70%. You can see the range on the ult is the same as the basic. This passive is cool when he's doing his double hitters, so 20% of the time from his basics or 100% of the time from the ultimate. He's ignoring 20% of the defense. When Warlord's Might is triggered, he increases his attack by 5% for 10 seconds. So if you trigger this every 10 seconds, you'll maintain max 3 stacks, which is how many stacks you can get, making it a 15% post-deployment attack boost. Finally, he gets some damage dodge, damage mitigation here. It's on a 60-second rotation where he just fully resists an instance of damage. And when you trigger it, he gets a big damage boost, 25% for 15 seconds. Every time you land any damage at all, you can reduce this cooldown. So theoretically, normally this happens every 30 to 35 seconds. This could make him kind of juicy for PvP, could make him juicy for Guild Wars, but probably off meta to begin. We'll see how it develops. Very quickly with Awakenings, because he is an Ancient exclusive Legendary Lord. Most of you won't get any Awakenings. At A1, during the ultimate, he triggers 1 Earthquake every 2 attacks. So instead of 3 attacks, it's 2 attacks. The ultimate lasts 25 seconds. So if he's attacking every 1.3 seconds, it's somewhat more significant. Maybe you get like 5 more Earthquakes. That's pretty spicy. We go to the A2, plus 300 attack for him, and then 20 more attack speed for the whole team. It's not the best Lord boost, but it's solid. The A3 is his biggest awakening by a mile. The ult lasts 35 seconds now instead of 25 seconds. Pretty good. He gets penetration at A4. And then at A5, he increases the maximum stacks of brute strength attacks by 2. So these are the things we stack over here. So instead of maxing out at a 15% boost, it's a 25% boost. If you get him fast enough, and certainly once he has the A3, he's going to maintain pretty darn good uptime at this. He becomes fairly special at A3, but still not broken Ancient exclusive Legendary Lord quality for a lot of stuff. Let's keep going, baby. That's the kit. That's the talent. Those are the Awakenings. Now, insanely fast for gear. He is a perfect candidate for like any gear set. Infernal Roar, why the heck not? Everything he does is a basic attack. Literally everything, even the Earthquakes, it all counts as basic attacks. So Infernal Roar, you'll get a 40% boost on literally all his damage. Soulbound Arcana, though, is still bugged. So why not throw that on him, right? It totally works. Once 5 ults total are triggered on the battlefield, you've got a 50% increase. Finally, Cataclysm is phenomenal and something you might be pretty interested in if you can get a Nightmare exclusive ring, because then you're going to have the extra 5% chance to land extra hits. That's valuable because unless you've got both, you're not running him with Torodor for the extra hits. So it's pretty cool. I'd say if you have a good Nightmare ring and you can get him in a good Cataclysm set, that'd be the top choice. And then it's kind of a wash between Infernal Roar and Soulbound Arcana. If all the stats were equal, in a longer battle, you do Soulbound Arcana. In a short, speedy battle, you'll do Infernal Roar. There you go. He's very versatile in terms of how you can gear him. When it comes to the artifact, he's in Scarlet Hunt because I was just running him with Twyla. This is a great one because he has high base stats, the Wailing Skull. I would not do Eye of Sin. The only real AoE is that terrible splash damage from the Earthquakes. Because he has 2-tile range, you can hide him behind someone. Frigid Flame could be good. And then I'll say, maybe you want him spamming basic attacks. Everyone loves Watchguard's Ambition. 15% at max promo, 10% at base to trigger an extra basic attack. Finally, before all our showcases, I mentioned his base stats are pretty good. Let me show them off. Pretty dang high HP at just over 28,000. Good, but with the standard that's been set, not game-breaking, 62-23 attack, but definitely very high. Solid defense, not crazy at 2136. Basement level magic res. So if you're using him in a GBG defense, that's something to consider. Very standard 19 cost, very standard 2.6 second basic attack interval. You're going to want him to go pretty fast if you want to use him as a stunner. We'll discuss that later. And then finally, 13 Rage Regen auto, just one tick under the typical 14 and completely standard 10 Rage Regen based off of his basic attacks. This is what Rage Regen percentage scales off of. You can see how that manifests right here. He also gets his collection bonus as a Nightmare unit. Onto the content. All right, guys, so this is going to be the team. We are always going to use Yuri, Sun Wukong, and Twyla as 3 of our 4 Nightmare units. When Wrath or Torodor is the Lord, we'll use Arrogance. When Rygar is there, we'll use Rygar. When it comes to our 4th unit, for our extra DPS, we're bringing Silas and Hex. I will not deploy Yovar. And then we've got Hollow and Dolores. These guys are both in great gear for this, but broken sets, because I don't want anyone unfairly to get Invigoration or Wings of Grace. So you can see that there with Hollow. You can see that here broken up by this Invig piece with Dolores. I do have Dolores in her exclusive to rid ourselves of some RNG and keep everything consistent. And now I do want to show off my DPS builds. They are all so crazy even. I spent so long getting everything nice and tight. Every single unit is in Soulbound Arcana or Infernal Roar, whatever is more geared towards them. I couldn't put them all in Soulbound Arcana. I don't have enough of that on the test server, but I do have a ton of good sets of Soulbound Arcana and Infernal Roar, and I'm using all the Warlord my account has to offer. So you can see everyone is going to be somewhere in the 300s for attack speed. You'll see that here as I click through all these guys. I'd really tried to keep that consistent. And then they are all in 2 crit damage pieces and 1 attack bonus piece on the right side. So all of them have between 230% and 235% additional crit damage. And everyone is in Warlord with attack bonus crit rate, crit damage, no extra attack speed, and then attack bonus crit rate, crit damage, no extra flat attack. So I have it really even. You can take a second to look through. I obsess over this. It took me longer than you can imagine to try to get everything perfectly even, but we have done that with our 6 DPS heroes. I took it one step further. No more exclusive artifacts. I want things as even as possible, but it's something to keep in the back of your head. Like, exclusive artifacts, not something Rygar has right now, right? And that is something that your Sun Wukong or your Arrogance would have. That could put it on even a further level. But you will see our 3 marksmen are all in maxed out Spirit Siphons, totally consistent. And then our 3 fighters, you know, it's always going to be Twyla and Sun Wukong, and then the third will either be Rygar or Arrogance. Rygar's gear, by the way, will just be ported straight over to Arrogance along with the artifact. These guys are all in maxed out Scarlet Hunts. We have very good uptime from Twyla over here, so it's really consistent. And, you know, they'll all get the bleed boost when it's there, and then the damage boost that comes with it, and then they'll all miss out on it when it's not there. So it should be really steady. And it's going to have near 100% uptime because Twyla is a total freak. I think that really explains everything. I'll remind you, Laurel is not here. We don't need her. I don't want some people getting rage cycled and some people not. But this is another way that other heroes are going to benefit, kind of, right? So like Hex is going to do far worse here without the Laurel cycling. But imagine if Hex was at his true potential, not in the maxed out Spirit Siphon, but even a base promo Suture of Copris with Laurel cycling. And then even if he was A3, it's a whole nother level, right? So without further ado, I'm going to show you this first run all together, and then it's going to be like bang, bang, boom, showing you the end of the next 4 runs as we update our sheet. Let's head into battle. No one's in Invig. There's no Laurel zones, so placements don't matter too much. The only key thing we're going to do, let's get Rygar here, Twyla here. I always want Sun Wukong here, so he's got plenty of space for his monkeys, and I always want to place him last so his monkeys don't accidentally quickly summon where I want everyone else to go, even though it does take 3 hits, so it wouldn't happen. We can get Dolores there. Arrogance is not getting deployed for this battle, right? I just have him queued up for an easy switch for the next one. Then we'll do Yuri, we'll do Silas, and we will do Hex, and finally, Hollow goes here. I'll just keep this thing on 2x. There's not too much to worry about. With certain people, when their ults are ready at the beginning, I'll use them right away. With other people like Sun Wukong, we're going to, actually with Sun Wukong, we'll do everyone right away for the first one just to keep it consistent. But after this, we're going to try to line up as many people. This is bugged. I'm not even going to show you. Line up as many people as possible with Dolores ults. I'm going to try to keep this really consistent. But yeah, there's not too much to do. You know, even as I say it now, this is not so much for me to guide you through. We're going to easily break 60, if not 70,000 blood. I think we'll probably be in the low 70s. So what I'll do is I'll just speed it up here to like 2 or 3x so you can watch it through if you want to see how everything's happening, make sure I don't make any mistakes. We'll check in at the end. And then it's, like I said, bang, bang, bang with the next 4. We've got a lot to show you guys. And then a big rant discussion at the end. Maybe rant's not the right word. So we just got to get through this. So I'm going to speed it up. I will see you guys, make myself a little smaller. I'll see you guys in a second. All right, I can throw it on auto there. And you guys can see I went a little high on my prediction, and that's because last time I did this, I had the people with exclusives in max out exclusives. So little mini comparison showcase if you want to compare this to my video from 2 days ago with how valuable exclusives are. I also want to say far too many people were saying, oh my God, Yuri's damage is terrible when like she wasn't an exclusive and Silas and Hex were there in their insane cracked out plus 25 exclusives. So you can see pretty darn good, 2/3 of 100K at 66,000 blood. Let's check those stats. And you'll see Yuri's still in the back, but it really takes her A3 for her to start to catch up a little bit. If you get her A3, she'll do about 20%, 25% more damage. So you could see she'd be closer to 90, close to where Hex was here. Granted, Hex without his exclusive. And you can see Rygar's DPS is legit. He's definitely not bad at all. But let's compare all this now directly to Torodor. Something I want to point out, Sun Wukong is, he is broken. Like, I'm not saying he's too OP and they need to nerf him. They shouldn't do that, no question. But we should all acknowledge far too many people keep comparing every new hero to Sun Wukong as if this is going to happen again, maybe ever, but certainly not anytime soon. This is ridiculous. A0 without his exclusive when he's not getting any boost from Rygar, right? So this is another key thing I want to point out as we transition. Rygar is boosting basic attack damage. Sun Wukong, his monkeys, those don't count as basic attack, the Sage clones, and his ult obviously does not as well. So it's only his other attacks and then the little burst damages from his passive. He's still head and shoulders above everyone else at A0. And then you can see Bonded Silas pretty cracked out with Yovar. And then Twyla obviously is the queen. But here's Rygar, kind of right on Twyla's heels. We can set that baseline now. Let me update the sheet very quickly. You can see we filled in the first run. I have the damage here in millions, so I could fit it easily. So 96.9 million, 74.5 million, 124.4 million. Sun Wukong is insane. You can actually see I'm rounding everything to the nearest 10th of a million. So the nearest 100,000. And actually, when you do that, Twyla and Rygar tied. So that is really interesting. Twyla obviously gets a huge bonus at A1, but Twyla at A0 already is like the one step below Sun Wukong, goated unit in the game. You can see on par with Bonded Silas. So it is really impressive. She is, of course, she's bonded with Hex, so she's getting that benefit. Hex is at 89.3. Silas at 99.8. So these are our baselines. Very quickly, before we hop in, 2 things I want to say. One of them you're about to see. Yuri obviously is much more synergistic with Torodor. The extra hits allow her to cycle her talent much quicker and also her ult much quicker. So that's just way better for Yuri. And also, if you were running a team like this without Torodor and it was Rygar or Yovar, obviously Yuri would have been way, way better with Yovar. Her ult, none of that counts as basic attack damage. And that's the big source of her damage for a fight like this. Without question. So there you go, guys. Let me show you how the changes will work. And then, like I said, I'm going to enter the battle and hop straight to the end. So what changes do we have to do? Well, I think it's pretty simple. We're still on our A0 testing. So we take Torodor. Torodor does not need gear, but we take this A0 arrogance and we directly port over that gear. I believe it was my Drake SB1 build on Rygar. Throw that on arrogance, on par with everything, just above 300 attack speed. 2 crit damage pieces, 1 attack bonus piece, 384% crit in that 380 to 385 range. And, they all have like a little touch of rage regen. So there you go. He's got to get that maxed out Scarlet Hunt to keep everything beautiful and even. And without further ado, let's go right into the battle once again. Now with Torodor as the Lord, Arrogance replacing Rygar, and let's see it happen. While I place them, and then we'll hop to the end of the battle, why is Arrogance placing Rygar? Again, this is going to seem repetitive to some of you, but those that don't get it yet, Rygar needed to be deployed, so we couldn't use a hero like Arrogance. Torodor doesn't need to be deployed. right? So we can use our best heroes. So here's our A0 Arrogance, and then you'll see Torodor with an A3 Arrogance, and things might get really spicy. So let's see it now. We'll do Arrogance here, do Twyla here. We will do, where are you? Sun Wukong here. Let's go Yuri. Let's go Hex. Let's go Silas. Let's go Dolores, and let's go Hollow. Before I let this go off to the races and I do this run, I do want to tell you, why did I not place Torodor? Don't I need a 4th Nightmare unit? We actually get 4. We have our 3 fighters over here, and then Yuri is the 4th. She's still with our Nightmare guys. So I'm going to run this, see you at the end. Let's see what happens. Coming to the end here, I'll just throw this on auto now. You can see it's pretty comparable, and I do think that was to be expected. I don't think A0 Arrogance, even with Torodor, is such a way better hero than Rygar. We actually lost out slightly. The key comparison is going to come at A3, where without a doubt, you know, it makes a big difference when these top heroes are awakened, and if you have to sub them out and lose the boost Torodor is giving them with the extra basic attacks, to bring Rygar in, but it's not to say Rygar should be slept on. You can see big bonus here for Sun Wukong. Actually very comparable with Yuri. I'll update the sheet in a second. Let me actually do that now. So here's our updated sheet for run number 2. All of our guys at A0 with our Torodor as the Lord. And actually, funny enough, that difference in blood we dropped going from Rygar to Torodor from 66,145 to 64,549. So a drop of about 1.6 thousand blood. That difference is Hex. Hex dropped about 15 million damage. If you don't know the way it works in the Drake, 10 million damage equals 1,000 blood. I don't know exactly why he dropped. Obviously, this is not like perfectly min-maxed, optimal cycling with all the ults. I try to line them up as well as I can with Dolores, but clearly something happened that he fell out of sync with Dolores. So that actually is the difference. So for their Nightmare units, they actually all improved with Torodor. I guess the first comparison, let's compare A0 Arrogance to A0 Rygar. So here's an Ancient Exclusive Legendary Lord going against a very good hero, but they're basically tying. I mean, that's a rounding error, 500,000 damage, right? I mean, they're right within everything. And then Yuri jumped up, again, kind of a rounding error, 400,000 damage. Remember, these are in millions. Sun Wukong had a huge jump. We thought Sun Wukong would be better with Torodor. He was able to ult more, and he was better, without a doubt. And then finally, Twyla had a fairly modest jump. So you can see there's the big drop-off with Hex and Silas. I'm not exactly sure, once again. I'll show you really quickly. I didn't change anything here. It's not like I took out Yovar or something. So you'll see that was the team. Some crazy funky thing happened with our marksman. Who's to say? Everything's at A0, so there's no questionable awakenings or stuff. But there you go. Rygar, this is where he should shine, right? But for him to be desirable, even going against A0 heroes, he needs to be better than Arrogance and Twyla, because it's a big sacrifice, especially in other content where you actually need a tank. It's like Guild Boss 2 and Void Rift and Guild Wars and Campaign and Gear Raid 2. And Gear Dungeon 2, aka Gear Raid 5. It goes on, right? So you're constantly doing this bargain, giving up your tank for Rygar, and he's not a good enough unit himself, and the Lord skill's not good enough of an improvement to justify that, in my opinion. You'll see something pretty interesting when we do the A3s. Let's go now and quickly do a test with Wrath. I'm just going to show you right now. We're going to take Wrath. We are going to put him in, and let me start the battle. I'll see you at the end of it. And let's see how we do with an epic Lord and these phenomenal heroes. All right, guys, I can throw this on auto now. You can see we're wrapping up. Obviously, we did worse with the Epic Lord, but it's not like we did 10,000 blood worse. Still doing pretty darn good here, as you can see. Just breaking, should we get 62? Just under 62,000. I'm very curious to see if we had the same weirdness with Hex. Let's see what happened. Nah, he kind of split the difference. Maybe Hex just had an amazing run, pulling the right cards the first time. You can see him and Silas just are fairly consistent to what we saw with the Torodor run. Obviously, everything drops down a bit, right? but you can still do really good with an Epic Lord. Let me update all of this into the sheet very quickly. All right, there you have it. You can see, obviously, all of our Nightmare units, their numbers dropped, but not always so precipitously. Yuri her peak was with Torodor. She dropped 4.7. Wukong dropped exactly 12 million. Twyla dropped the biggest. Twyla's benefiting a ton from both of these. I want to talk about her at the end, but Twyla, everything she's doing is basic attack, so the extra basic attacks helps a ton. The basic attack damage boost helps a ton. So she was hurt. She dropped 11.6 million. Arrogance dropped just less than 9 million, and then here are our piercers unaffected. So the big point I want to make with Wrath, you can see we're only doing the one test the one time, and that's because I think this one comparison shows you, yes, you're better off with the Legendary Lords, but especially once we talk about the other things later on, I don't think people should be, I mean, if you really want to, it's your account. You do your thing, baby. But I think if you want to min-max your account, you shouldn't like pull all your Ancients right now for Rygar just because you don't have Torodor, thinking he's going to be that much better than Wrath. I will say the one case in which he's going to boost your account like crazy is if you don't have a bunch of top fighter options already. Because as you can see, he's kind of there with like as good as the top A0 fighters in the whole game. So that is pretty cool. You'll see when we do the A3s, obviously. A3s, not everyone has them, but that's something you're far more likely to get on the normal fighters than Rygar. But, you know, if you're in a position where you kind of like just have Arrogance and then like the Salazar you fused and you need a third fighter and you don't have Torodor, then Rygar is going to be a huge upgrade because you're getting a new, really good fighter and you're getting an improved Lord to Wrath. All right, let's do our A3 testing. Give me a moment to bring everyone to A3. Then we'll quickly test with Rygar, quickly test with Torodor, and see what happens. Here we go, guys. We have all the same builds, and I've brought our guys up to Awaken level 3. So you may be wondering, why am I doing that? It's such a weird, specific thing to do. A3 is usually a big, like, unlock new potential awakening for heroes, and it's something many of you can, and some of you will get on these heroes. If you're early on in the game or you've had bad luck, that may seem not like a thing, but with these normal, you know, non-ancient exclusive, non-lord heroes, with some of them, it's gonna happen over time, and these are the quality of heroes, the quality of DPSs that Rygar needs to be at least as good as, if not better than, to, I think, justify his place on more advanced accounts. As I've already said, and this will probably be the last time I do it except for the very end, because I don't want to totally beat this dead horse. If you're earlier on and you don't have top options, if you don't have Torodor, he's a great choice. I'll talk about it later. I don't think he's still worth your ancient summons. We'll also talk about it in the should you summon tomorrow. But yeah, I hope that explains why I'm doing these A3s now. So you can see we're going to bring Rygar back in. I'm going to port that gear over from Arrogance. And I decided I do want to do one more thing to make things, because we're trying to show proper potential, right? That's kind of what we're working with here. Here's the gear from Arrogance. Let's put it onto Rygar. If these heroes have exclusives, let's show them in the exclusive, because that's going to be the best comparison, because Rygar doesn't have an exclusive. No Lord in this game has an exclusive besides Leia and Morrigan, I think. Actually, a few do, now that I think about it. Leia, Morrigan, Araka, Twin Fiend. There's definitely a couple. I don't think any of the ancient exclusives do, and I think it's really likely he's not going to get one. That's kind of my point, whereas these guys have an extra potential raised ceiling, because this is something that can happen to them. So the ones that can get it, let's give it to them, because I want to really just show this. And I hope you guys agree with the way I'm choosing to test this. I'm hoping it does make sense to you. You can see these are A3 units. Let's give Hex the maxed out Sutra. And then let's give, I think that's everybody, right? Hex, Silas, and Mr. Sung Wukong. We might as well do Arrogance now for when we do the test with Torodor. So there you go. Also, Rygar needs that Scarlet Hunt back. That's going to be the best, most consistent one for him here. I guess there's an argument for Wailing Skull, but I want to keep him steady because I think that's realistic. And there you go. We're going to test this now with all these non-Lord heroes at A3 with Rygar, then Torodor. See you in a second. All right, less than 2 minutes now. I'm already going to interrupt this just to say I did expect it, but still inadvertently, this is becoming a demo, a showcase of how powerful awakenings and exclusive artifacts are. Remember, all these heroes are in the exact same gear they've been in the whole time, and we are not even at the third shield, and we're over 50,000 damage. So it's that powerful, and I point that out, and I do these last two comparisons, again, just to reiterate, Because to justify bringing Rygar, when all else is equal, if you have other options and you have Torodor, this, that, and the other, he needs to be, I'd say, at least as good, if not a nice chunk better than these other top options with a couple awakenings in them. Because that's who he's going up against, because you're sacrificing a melee spot, you're losing a tank because you're not bringing Torodor, so you need to get a tank in another way. It's a big trade-off. He needs to be deployed to get all this stuff. So because that's the case, he really needs to perform, and like, spoiler alert, he's obviously not going to. We're already breaking 60K there. I'm almost at the point where I can just throw this on auto. It's pretty crazy, right? So he's not a bad hero. I want to just, it's clear as day. Nothing about him is bad, but to justify having him constantly on the field to actually make him a Lord, because otherwise he just gets the same Lord skill as Wrath and nothing else is different besides 5% more basic attributes, giving 15% to Nightmare units instead of 10. He's going to have to do better than A3 Arrogance is about to do with Torodor, and I'll tell you, he's not going to do that. You can skip ahead if you want. There's no shot in heck that that's going to happen. Little late on the Sun Wukong trigger there, but who cares? We can throw this on auto. We're already over 80K. We're going to probably break 85K. And key thing here, right? Not one piece of gear was changed from the 66K run we did with Rygar before. Now we put up almost 21,000 more blood. So let's see what that looks like very quickly. You can see Hex becomes a new man with his exclusive, a new man with that A3. Yovar gives a big, big boost. He's coming in at 176.6. Then we got Sun Wukong. We've got Silas. Big bump for Twyla. I'm very curious to see how that compares to her with Torodor. Twyla at A3 with Torodor compared to Rygar. And look at that, Yuri with the A3 becomes a really, really viable boss unit. I mean, she's 9 million, less than 9 million away from Twyla, over 100 million. She's not like definitive meta top DPS, but when you get her A3, she's really viable in bosses when you count the insane uptime on that best for 100% uptime defense break, the 25% defense break in this game. It's phenomenal. And then if you got the bond skill, that little extra healing, I saw some people poo-pooing it in my Yuri guide. That literally could be the difference in saving a run or not saving a run for a deep Apocalypse 2 Semra run. So you can see huge differences. Let me load this into the sheet. And there you go. It's all loaded in. You can see Rygar is now second to last. Before he was right on pace with like a bonded Silas, a bound Silas, and a Twyla when they were at A0. But once these guys start cooking, when the heroes with exclusives get their exclusive artifacts, you get a couple awakenings, which you might not have instantaneously. So again, early on, he may make a huge difference. But as you fill out that roster, you get awakenings. He's dwarfed by these guys. I mean, Yuri's still really good. Rygar's still really good, but they're clearly not at the level of these two freaks in Sun Wukong A3 with the exclusive, Hex A3 with the exclusive, and then a chunk below Bound Silas and Bound Twyla. So I think that really puts in perspective. Let's drive it home one final time. Can you really ever justify using this guy? This is going to be pretty simple. I don't have to do anything except port that over to Arrogance. Should take me all but a second. And then we throw in Torodor as the Lord. Arrogance is always already in that maxed out Eye of Mockery. And yeah, skip ahead if you need to. You can absolutely, however you want to call it, you can see where this is going, right? You can see where it's going. I've been building up to a big point, and I think we're about to make it. See you in a second. All right, I'm going to interrupt it early again because here we are, over 56,000, probably going to be 57 before this third shield. And this brings us to the other thing Rygar's failing to do. If he wasn't going to do more damage than these guys, at the very least, he should make them do more damage than they do with Torodor. His Lord skill should be a bigger boost. And as you can already see, clear as day, that is not the case. It's not the case. So Rygar's not bad at all, but he's inferior to Torodor for tons of this stuff. And certainly he becomes inferior when you realize you have to leave someone else off the ground. You have to lose a melee unit to bring him in. And you have all these contingencies. So it's not functionally going to be realistic deeper on into the game, right? That's the right way I think you can think about it. It's kind of simple as that. If you get him at the right moment, it's good, but he's not the kind of hero you're going to seek out because he's not some huge, big picture needle mover. If you get him on the right account at the right moment, we can throw this on auto now. Get him at the right account, on the right account at the right moment, he could be a total game changer, right? But in the big picture, large scheme of things, if you're the kind of player, and you probably are because you're watching my video, that plans to love this game and play it for months, you're thinking bigger than how much can I be helped now? And look at that. I mean, not very min-max, mindless auto, just trying to time out Dolores. We set a new high at 88.434. I mean, look at some of these numbers. Hex dropped a bit, but Twyla is up through the roof now. She's so much better than Torodor, and this is really a knock against Rygar because everything she's doing is basic attack damage. He should be boosting her, but the uptime's not good enough to keep up for the fact that she gets so many extra hits now and so many extra opportunities to trigger those deranged blades. You can see Arrogance is better than Rygar. It's a great situation, but in this situation, in this ideal Arrogance that you can reach, and the Rygar you won't be able to reach much higher, he's better. And then Yuri is even doing better here with Torodor. So Torodor is really helping everyone. We missed a couple ults lining up with Dolores for Sung Wukong. That's the drop there. But you can just see it's a better run. It really is. So let's put the final numbers into the sheet and let's compare. So there you go, guys, our final inputs. And you can see our best run was this Torodor run with the A3 units. Not far behind was the Rygar run. Overall, you can see there's not such crazy variance, at least on the whole. With certain heroes like Twyla, there frickin' is, going from Rygar to Torodor, for example. And let's not bury the lead that Rygar's still really good. He's in the conversation with these units, especially when they're at A0. He is that. But the reason we're showing A3, the reason we're showing exclusive artifacts in these final examples is because this is what you have to work towards with these normal heroes and the other melee options that you're sacrificing to use Rygar. Whereas with Rygar, as it stands now, he has no exclusive gear, no exclusive artifact. You're not going to get Awakenings, almost certainly, unless you're a crazy whale or you're super lucky. So he's kind of capped down here. Whereas these guys, somewhere here, these guys are just shining bright like a diamond. Simple as that. They can grow in such a crazy, crazy way. All right, guys, so now I want to discuss Rygar as a stunner and a defense break hero in Guild Boss 2 specifically. So I'm going to do a little showcase. Before we do, I touched on these fairly RNG unreliable chances to land the stun and the defense break. That's all tied in with the ultimate. He has a 40% chance that he's going to just use his hammer, and those have a 20% chance to inflict stun. Then he has a 40% chance he's going to just use his axe, and those have a 20% chance to land defense reduction. And then 20% of the time, he goes with both, and both have a 20% chance to land either. And theoretically, you can land both if it all lines up perfectly. When you ult, he's only using Warlord's Might, so he's always attacking with both, and the chances are doubled. So with every basic attack now for the duration of his ultimate, 25 seconds or 35 seconds if you're lucky to have him A3, every time he's doing both the hammer and the axe, both coming with a 40% chance to land a stun and or defense reduction. Those chances are not contingent upon one another. So now let's do the math. Let's break it down so all of you can see. We'll go pretty quick here because I want to get into the actual showcase and you can see it in practice. We'll start off discussing the basics. 40% of the time, he's just using his hammer. When that happens, those 40% of the hits come with a 20% chance to stun, a 0% chance to land the defense reduction. The axe is the inverse. 40% of the time, he just uses the axe. 0% of that, 40%, is he going to land the stun. 20% of those 40% of hits, he is going to land the defense reduction. So just from the solo hammer strikes, 8% of the time he will land a stun, and 0% of the time he does a defense reduction. It is the opposite for the axe. It is the inverse. So 0% of the time from just the axe, he will land the stun. 8% of the time he'll land the defense reduction. And remember, 20% of his basic attacks are guaranteed to be Warlord's Might. Those guarantee he uses both the axe and the hammer together. So each one of those respectively comes with the 20% chance to land the crowd control or the debuff effect. So 20% chance to stun, 20% chance to do the defense reduction. So remember, these are happening 20% of the time, and then 1/5 of that 20% comes out to 4%. So 4% of the time from his Warlord's Might on his basics, he's landing a stun, and 4% he's landing the defense reduction. So if we combine that from any basic at any moment, there's a 12% chance, 8% plus 4%, that he will land a stun, and a 12%, 8% plus 4%, that he will land the defense reduction. So just from his basics, even if you build him really fast, as I did, and we'll discuss this here, I built him at 501 attack speed really quick because it's still a heavy DPS build. with that 35% Nightmare Lord bonus plus 35% attack speed once we get 4 units out onto the field, regardless if they stay there. That's 676%. So it's either a 1.3 second interval or with the bonus a 1.2. I will show you that in a second, but we do need to talk about his ult. During his ult, he keeps on basic attacking, but now 100% of the time, it is Warlord's Might, and the chances to land the stun and the defense reduction are both doubled. So with all his basics, every time he's doing both hits, hammer and axe, and 40% of the time from the hammer, he will get that stun, and 40% of the time from the axe, he will get the defense reduction. So all in all, 2/5 of the time he's landing the stun, 2/5 of the time he's landing the defense reduction. He obviously can land them together. Again, no contingency there. So the last thing I have to do and show you before we head into battle is talk about the build. I've changed his build from the Guild Boss 1 stuff you saw. He is in an attack speed amulet now. And though on the left, we're still going for DPS subs because I want to keep this realistic. No one's normally going to build him with no DPS and just build him for like 700 attack speed, especially when you get that big Nightmare Lord bonus, the plus 35%. So we still went here, but we do get the plus 30 attack speed as part of the Warlord bonus. When it came to the bangle in the ring, though, I did look for big attack speed subs. So 78 here, and here we got 73. All in all, we have 401 additional attack speed. That brings him to 501 attack speed total, which cuts his attack interval in half at 1.3. You may be thinking, oh, but when we do his Lord skill, and he gets the plus 35% attack speed as long as him and at any point 3 other Nightmare units are deployed, doesn't it get a lot higher? Yes, it does. I actually did the math here. Let me show you. You can see 501 times 1.35 or times 135%. 501 plus an additional 35% comes out to just over 676. So to show you what that looks like, I built 677 attack speed on Valeria, who has the same base attack interval. That brings it down to 1.2 seconds. That 0.1 second does mean a lot. When you get to the lower numbers, it's more dramatic to drop by 0.1 second, obviously. Dropping from 4.0 seconds to 3.9 is not as significant over a period of time than dropping from 1.3 to 1.2. Hope that makes sense. But that all being said, it's not like he's going to get out a million attacks. If you don't land any stuns or freezes or crowd control effects during that Death Saw bar, it lasts exactly 10 seconds. So even if you land 3, right, every time you land one, it increases the duration by 1 second that you have on that bar counting up before he starts doing the smashes in Semra. So even if you land 3, that means it will last 13 seconds, which means he's going to do between 10 and 11 hits. 10 and 11 hits, if it's just the basics, with a 12% chance, you're talking 1 to 2 stuns on average, right? We're talking about stuns now. And then with the ultimate, 40% of the time, 10 to 11 hits, you're talking 4 to 5 stuns on average. So let's see that in practice. I've already set the team up. You'll see very quickly, I'll keep it on auto just to make this go quick. I do quickly place the other 3 Nightmare units and pick them up. I picked them up because I don't want any extra DPS so I can really showcase this, but you'll see they're on cooldown, and if you looked closely, the plus 35% popped up. They don't need to stay down. It's not like when you pick them up, you lose the effect. He's at plus 35% attack speed now. So let's first show no ult, just the basics. Here comes the bar at 22 seconds. So far, we've landed none. We've landed none. Right? We got 1 defense reduction. The chances from just the basics are brutal. I've done as well as 3. I tested this about 10 or 15 times before, and I've done as poorly as 0. I've never done better than 3. Of course, it's possible. It's coming out to a 12% chance per hit, as we discussed with the math, and you could just hit it every time over and over. You could max it out, getting 12 in a row, but it's supremely unlikely. I'm seeing it range between 0 and 3. So now you might be thinking, all right, so just ult. And then we're guaranteed he's using the hammer and the axe both times. So we know every hit at the least for the stuns, he is using that hammer and the chance is doubled. So it's 40%. So we should see like 4 or 5, maybe even more if we get lucky. So let's wait. There's 2 things you're going to have to see here. Let's wait till he starts. All right, let's start ulting. There's 1. There's 2. And that's it, right? There's a lot of RNG. So sometimes I've gotten as high as 7 and I've gotten as low as 0. It's still RNG. He's not getting a high enough amount of attacks out. But the real issue you're going to see if you try to use him as a solo stunner. Obviously, if you have supplemental stuns from like a Praetus button, the stuns from Praetus's Lord skill, maybe you have an A3 plus Wukong, maybe you're running Hex, there's a lot of things. Then he'll have more opportunities. But people saying that he will land 10 to 12 stuns is what I heard in my comments. That's crazy. Of course, it's possible, but it's unlikely. Here's the worst part. Let's throw it on 1x. This build, is super high attack speed, and I'm running Elwyn. I also didn't show you, I'll show you after this, he has over 60% rage regen. So even with all that rage regen and all that attack speed, he's only halfway to being able to do his ult again. That's crazy. So here we'll let it run just basic. So it's not even like Helga or Nazim where you can one-to-one cycle. Unless, I guess, if you want to put him in like strictly, let's use him as a stunner kind of build, which does have, there is optionality there, you know, especially if you don't have Torodor and you want to run a Nightmare comp, maybe you run him in like a Watchguard's Ambition, the legendary fighter artifact that at max promo gives you a 15% chance every basic to do an extra one. Maybe you want to do that. That could help. And then certainly you could build him faster and with more rage regen. But look at that. Again, just with the basics, remember, 501 built attack speed, 676.2 or 676.4. Let's double check that. 676.4 with the bonus. He got 0 again. So he can't do it with his basics, so you got to rely on the ult to have anything reliable, right? Of course, you got to have good luck with the basic, but in general, you can see you need to rely on the ult for it to be reliable, and the ult does not come back around fast enough. So let me show you that again now. Let's wait for the slam. What you can do is try to get a little early on it since it lasts more than long enough at 25 seconds. So let's already start ulting. So there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4, there's 5, there's 6, there's 7, there's 8, there's 9. So now he was on a heater there, right? So it can line up, right? I think my previous best was like 6 or 7 or something. So that's the best I did with 9. I'm not saying he's unusable for this, but if you want to be able to reliably get to 12 stuns with just him, it will not happen, and you can't use the ult every time without an insane build. So here we go again. By jumping it a little early, he's closer to ready, right? He's closer to ready. He's still not totally there. So by the time he's ready now, he's like just about halfway. So if he starts landing some stunts, he can build himself some more time. We run out of time there. I'll show you the ult like 2 or 3 more times. Actually, what I'm going to do, I'll build him like just all rage regen, all attack speed, and we can see. Then he probably can cycle to cycle, especially if you jump it a little bit like I did there. But at that point, you're giving up all the DPS upside. All right, so this was the build we were just running, right? 64.5% rage regen, so already really good with 401 additional attack speed, 501 total. This is a crazy build to still have this much DPS. It's very test server-y that I'm able to do this. The next build is even crazier, but hey, it's the test server. Let's go nuts. So I'm still keeping him in DPS, but I'm going for huge attack speed now. So we're going to get him all the way up to 667, which we'll do the math together right now with the 35%. You can see right there, 667 with that 35% additional. Let's see what happens really quickly. It should auto update. We're up to 905. So we'll talk about, it's going to be about a 1.1 second interval. So this is a pretty crazy build. And maybe this is what you do, especially for progression. But at this point, I mean, with 78% rage regen too, I should have said that. I was trying to throw as much extra rage regen as I could get as well. I mean, this is a god tier build. So let's see in this build, if I jump those cycles early with the ult, how good can we do, right? Let me actually show you how the placements of the Nightmare units go. Let me interrupt this like instantly. So you can see plus 35% right there. It happened, even though they're all off. It's not like when I take them off, it goes away. Trust me, I've done this a million times. Take my word for it. So we know this is the bar starts at 22 seconds. So I'll already start it now at 225. Just so to guarantee he's good to go for the duration. And let's see. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. So even with the god tier build, right? 901 attack speed after the 35% bonus, you can clearly miss the RNG. So the idea that he's getting 10 plus reliably over and over is unthinkable. Even in the ult, even with this god tier build. Sometimes you probably can get 12 with this build if you get really, really lucky. But I'd say the average is going to be 6. Probably. We'll let it go again, but it probably is going to be 6. That should be the expected value with the 1.1 second interval, 6 or 7. So let's see here. Let's let him go again. By the way, I jumped that really early, right? Like 5 seconds. Here comes the ult. He's only at 72%. With Elwyn. With Elwyn giving rage, he is at 901 attack speed or 667 before the bonus, and he's got almost 75% rage regen, and he's still not ready. Let's spam him as early as possible. It's going to be the very end here. It's crazy. Let's start over one more time. Let's jump it even earlier. Let's jump it at like 230. So we'll have 8 wasted seconds, which theoretically, if he lands too many stuns, is going to hurt him, right? Because he only knocks it back 1 second each time. His ult actually will run out. So let's see here. At 230, I'll do it. So 8 wasted seconds, but this way we know we're good to go, and maybe it's going to help us cycle into the next one better. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so some nice little bursts at the end there. He's not bad at this at all, but he's not freaking Nazim or Helga. No shot. There's huge variance. There's a ton of RNG. That's the whole issue with Rygar's kit. He's not good enough to justify this quantity of RNG. So here you go. We're coming back around much better with that early jump. So now let's spam it. And now let's see how good we are for the third time around, since that time we had to get it just as it started. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. So we've seen everything between 4 and 9, right? And this is an insane God tier build, right? 677 attack speed, still some DPS, and over 70% rage regen. It's crazy. So now he's not even close to coming back around because the second time around, even with the early jump the first time, the second time around he had to be right at the beginning. So you probably would need to run 2 rage regen heroes or alternate between him and someone else. I mean, look at that. We landed none. It wasn't ready in time. We landed 1 from the basics. So there you go. I think point proven. Also, I wasn't talking about the defense reduction, but you saw that was kind of unreliable. The good thing there is it lasts for 5 seconds. So if in the 5 seconds it's lasting, he resets it. He'll restart that stack. So he can keep pretty good uptime, but even on the defense break, it is not 100% uptime. Nothing like Yuri, nothing like Torodor. All in all, TLDR, too long, don't read. This hero is not strong enough at all to justify this insane, severe amount of RNG allowing him to function. He's just not good enough for that. So to conclude, I'm actually not going to have to rant or go for that long. Why should you be excited about Rygar? As a hero, he's pretty good. As a Lord, he's okay. He's definitely Lord skill. He's one of the worst. The contingency on how to use him and needing him to be deployed and needing to ult is very frustrating, and the inconsistent uptimes that there come from that are really frustrating. The key thing, though, is you need to use him. You need to bring him. You lose the double dip if you have Torodor on getting a defender and a Lord. So now you need to get a defender another way for a lot of content. And you lose the benefit of not having to deploy your Lord. Like for certain content where you don't need a tank, you can still bring Torodor and you can sit on your bench and you get to use an extra top DPS or an extra support or something like that. Here with Rygar, your hands are kind of tied. You have to bring him in. So there's a huge negative to him, right? Is he a bad hero? No, he's a good hero. Is he a bad Lord? Kind of. He's kind of a bad Lord. Before I do sign off, let's talk about content. I'm not going to name every piece of content in the game, but just comparing these guys. Guild Boss 2, Torodor is going to be the better option for a lot of reasons. The defense break is 100% uptime. Rygar is not. And also, if you're bringing Rygar, you're like, oh, shoot, I got to find a tank in another way. GVG, it's going to be Torodor. I could see Rygar being really good in GVG, helping with healing, especially if they introduce another high-end Nightmare tank. In general, I do see the relevance of Rygar really tied to the addition of another Nightmare tank. Because otherwise, it's not going to be Baron. It's not good enough for the super high-end stuff. Specific things, sure, but Baron isn't Torodor. There's not the stun RNG, annoying stuff like that. So basically, it comes down to like running Torodor and Rygar together, or for Rygar to really emerge, and I think really become a meta unit, we need a new defender better than Torodor. And that can run with Rygar, and then it makes up for the fact that Rygar is just a fighter, because now he's not taking the spot of a defender, and you just have another fighter. You can take a different fighter that went out of the lineup and put that new sexy defender in there, but we don't have that one right now. And it might not be coming for a very long time. We haven't had a new Nightmare defender since Draga a year ago. So I don't think we should hold our breath for that, but if that does happen, that will help. Or if there was some comp that emerges where you run an off-faction tank and you use Rygar's Lord, it's possible, but clearly Torodor is superior. Guild Boss 1, it's kind of a wash. If you have a full account with these high-end guys, with good gear, a couple exclusives, maybe some awakenings, I'm Team Torodor for Shoredor. For other stuff, other situations, it obviously can be Rygar. Any general progression in the game, Void Rift, campaign, if you need a tank and you're stripped for a number of units, you're always going to take Torodor. And for so many heroes, his Lord skill is just going to be better with the extra chance for hits. So overall, I'd say Torodor is definitively better, certainly later on in the game for PvE content. You can progress with both, but I think I still would defer to Torodor early on. Guild Boss 2, Torodor, GVG, Torodor. You heard there's one thing I haven't mentioned yet, and that, of course, is going to be PvP Arena. The one place I could see Rygar maybe being a star and having an influence on the meta is going to be single target Arena. If you ran him and you timed your ults well, you wouldn't need to bring a healer. As it stands now, for certain comps, you don't need a healer, but you could see that being pretty nice. The knock against him is the most meta Nightmare units are like Sun Wukong and Salazar, stuff like that. And those heroes are burst heroes, not basic attack heroes. So I think that, again, is a knock. You get it. Torodor is better in almost every single piece of content. He's clearly superiorador. Let's be honest. So there's your Rygar guide. I think I was dang-ass thorough. Dang-ass. I was super thorough, right? I think you're empowered with the information now. You'll get a should you summon on him tomorrow. You can see what I think. Is this guy worth your coveted ultra rare currency or ancient summoning crystals that could be used for Ingrid or Praetus or Valderon or Yovar or Cyrus or Torodor? No, right? No. Okay. Even if you're early on, this is the kind of guy right now that you get accidentally and you're like, hey, it could be worse. It is what it is. And if you don't have Torodor, you go, wow, I got a legendary lord in that faction. There you have it. Thank you so much for watching. I've been filming for 3 hours and I prepped for even longer than that. So I really hope you liked it. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Fastidious. Subscribe to the channel, share with your mother, and I'll see you real soon. Bye.
Fastidious.
Geez, that took forever, that video. You know, in the battle between Rygar and Torodor, there'd be a lot of blood and Gorodor. Talking about Rygar this much is kind of a Snorodor. It even became kind of a Chorodor. I just wanted to, get into a ball in the fetal position on the Florodor. I don't know if you were keeping Scorodor, but I definitely prefer Torodor. And I really can't say much more. Goodbye.